Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to welcome you once again to our webinar platform on rigid packaging. This evening, we have a very special topic, which is, very well accepted around the globe as a technology, but over here, we all are very eager to learn about this and to see how we can implement. It's on the tethered closures as a subject, and we're going to hear this evening on this topic, tethered closure adoption, and as it is rising fast, explore the latest examples, technology, and tips for success. And we're going to hear this from Husky Technologies on how tethered closures are in widespread production in beverage markets around the world, and it is adoption by globally recognized brands. Today, we will hear from tethered closures experts Husky as they share with us the compelling business benefits of switching to tethered closures for beverages, including brand differentiation, sustainability, compliance, and more. We'll also hear from them on the real-world examples of tethered closures in production around the world, and we're going to see some visual guide on the latest tethered designs for beverages and manufacturing approaches, and also how to get started with tethered closures and tips for success. To share with us all these details, we have with us this evening Michael White, who's the Director of Business Development for Closures, Husky Technologies. Michael is responsible for the market introduction of new beverage closure injection molding technologies for Husky's portfolio of closures globally. With a professional background in marketing and product management, Michael has held various product management and product marketing positions over the past 20 years at Husky's US and Bolton campuses. Michael holds an honors bachelor's degree in environmental sciences, and also he has a master's degree from Wilfrid University, Canada. Without much ado, I'd like to pass on to Michael, who's going to share with us and take us through this journey on tethered closures. Michael, over to you.
Thank you, Ben, for that warm introduction. And thank you, everyone, for attending, wherever you may be. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. So without any delay, we'll jump right into it. So I've divided the topic or the talk today into a few different topics. The first, I want to talk about who is going tethered in 2022 and some of the reasons behind that. I want to then switch gears and talk about keys to the successful adoption of tethered closures. We'll go over some of the latest design approaches that Husky offers and some of the benefits associated with those specific designs. And then finally, we'll conclude by going over how Husky can help you as a brand owner or as a converter on adopting and integrating a tethered solution into your portfolio. Tethering Initiative was really brought about through the European legislation that was passed back just over 3 years ago in March of 2019. So it's quite a broad piece of legislation focusing on single-use plastics. It bans certain single-use plastics like plastic cutlery, straws. It requires a certain amount of recycled content in other single-use plastic items like beverage containers, and that is using a graduated approach over the years up to 2030. I believe it's 25%, then 40%, 50%, and so on, all the way out to 2030. But really, the focus of the talk today is on specifically the tethered closure. And really, the key thing that I want you to take away, there's two key things on this slide. The first is highlighted here in the bottom right. And essentially, by July of 2024, if you are a brand or a converter that is looking to sell into the European market, you need to ensure that your offering, i.e. the closure on any bottle that has a volume of 3 liters or less, needs to remain affixed to the neck finish in some fashion, as shown here. The second point that I want to take away from this slide is really, we believe this is the first domino to fall. And I'm going to show you some data a little bit later that'll re-emphasize, or that will emphasize this point. You can simply look at some of the countries I've listed there on the bottom left of single-use plastic legislations that are being drafted, considered, and even passed in other countries. So really, we see this as the first domino to fall in the EU. It's the wind in the sail to have other nations and geographies start to adopt this, whether it's a national level, a provincial or state level, or even a regional level. We believe that tethered legislation is going to expand beyond Europe. And really, we see that as a good thing. Some of the reasons that I've listed here, one is if you're operating in a market where there isn't legislation, it gives you an opportunity to differentiate yourself, promote a sustainability message, say that, hey, I'm assured by offering this tethered solution that this, my product, the closure on my bottle, is not going to be discarded into the natural environment, find its way to a beach, the ocean. You know, we've seen all those images. So it's really a sustainability message to help differentiate yourself. Look at the middle bullet there, the differentiation and premiumization. When I get into some of the other closure designs that I'll show you, they really help to elevate the brand because you'll see through the designs that they have a very intuitive approach, a locking mechanism that really makes it a little more elegant and helps to elevate your brand. Again, helps to differentiate your product on the store shelf. And then finally, by offering a tethered solution in a geography where, say, there isn't legislation, it gives you an opportunity to storytell. And anytime you can do that, talk about your brand in a positive manner, it really helps you to stay top of mind in the consuming public. And that's a good thing too. So here's some data that I wanted to share with you. This, the countries in red highlighted here are all countries where we have either completed tethered projects, i.e. shipped tethered molds, or we are very active in working on a specific project that will be shipped this year or early in 2023. And really, I want to draw your attention to the statistic here in red. 59% of the projects that we're working on or have shipped with tethered have occurred or have shipped to or will be shipped to outside the EU. So the legislation is here. You can see North America, Brazil, Zambia, Saudi. We have Southeast Asia, including Australia. There is a lot of other brands that are adopting tethered where they're not simply mandated to. And I think that speaks to a lot of the reasons why on the previous slide. It's a means to differentiate your product, send that sustainability message, and reinforce the brands through social media or other channels. So it's really the data is supporting what I said 2 slides previously, where I said that there's a very high likelihood that you'll start to see legislation outside of Europe. An example there on the far left, this is a pouch type tethered solution as well. So something in a food type application. And you'll see as we get into it, how we were able to apply all of our learnings in our tethered design that we have today. And for lack of a better word, copy paste that into another application that's kind of adjacent. So again, key message takeaway here, tethered will happen or will be legislated in areas outside the EU. When, I cannot tell you that, but you can see from the the countries shown here outside of the EU that brands and converters are adopting the Tethered initiative. Here's one example. It's a quote from one of our earliest adopters, Nature Spring, which is a Philippine spring water brand owner. And here what they highlighted: as a company that values quality and innovation, consumer experience is a critical design input. The success of the Tethered initiative is heavily dependent upon us delivering an optimal consumer experience. And I'm going to explain what he's referring to there with our unique design. Key takeaway here: a brand owner in the Philippines recognized the ability to leverage tethering as a means to differentiate their product on the store shelf. And I'll get into the reasons what he's talking about with the value of the design. So some of the keys to success. So I know that I mentioned earlier the law doesn't come into effect until July of 2024. So basically we're 2 years out. However, we need to get started now if you're looking to implement something and get ahead of that deadline. Consumer-centric design. That's something else I'm going to explain in further detail, but really making it as intuitive and as simple as possible. You don't want to have to teach the consumer how to open it, how to lock it. Is it locked? Is it not locked? Is it supposed to flap around like this? All this kind of questions from the consumer just lead to frustration, and frustration can lead to bad or negative opinions of your product, and that doesn't help you when you're looking to create a positive view of your product in the marketplace. Critical design considerations, obviously, what neck finish you're looking for. Are you going to implement this as part of a lightweighting initiative? These are some of the things that you need to consider. And then working with an experienced partner, someone who has a portfolio of tethered solutions already, proven tethered solutions, someone that has global reach and can support you through this whole tethered journey. So this here is just a timeline, just a rough timeline that kind of highlights what the typical tethering initiative would look like. And some may argue that this is a little aggressive, but you can see here it's a good solid year. And some areas might go quicker, some might take a little longer, but with a 2-year deadline to satisfy the EU requirements, it's better to have a bit of buffer to just deal with that unforeseen. So the first step would be identifying the dispensing system. And by that, I mean, what neck finish are you looking to go with? Currently, maybe you're using a heavyweight neck finish for your flat water application, say a 30-25. Maybe you combine this with an opportunity to lightweight and achieve or realize additional cost savings. So you go with a 29-25, for example. So that takes some time to understand, okay, does this neck finish fit the brand, right? Does it fit my brand? Or is it too much of a commodity type neck finish that I need to stay where I am today, but maybe looking at some lightweighting options that I can still take some weight or use it as an opportunity to take weight out of my package. Consumer validation. This I cannot stress enough. And by that I mean doing consumer studies, getting feedback from the consumer. Do they like this tethering? Do they like the neck finish? What would they change? You know, gathering that kind of feedback is critical to the success of your project. Fortunately, we've done a lot of that heavy lifting already, and working with a lot of the global brands that we have, we've gotten a lot of that feedback and gone back and tweaked our designs. Since we started 3 years ago, we've been able to really polish them and have them at a very optimized consumer experience feedback. Next is the piloting validation in the package. By that I mean the bottle. So once you've decided on a dispensing system, you have the voice of the customer data, you're comfortable with that, then it's time to set about to the piloting stage. And there, that can take anywhere from 3 to 4, even 5 months to getting it right. And then tooling conversion. Do you have an existing mold, or are you looking to purchase a new mold? Those are some of the considerations there. On a very aggressive schedule, you could get away with maybe four months from a start to finish till you have a production mold, but more likely it's in the 5 to 6 month type range. And then line conversions, these typically, with the designs that we offer today, provided that you're staying with the same neck finish, it's just simply adjustments that are required. And the only component that you would need are new capping chucks. However, those would fall in the shadow of the actual mold build, so that would be a moot point. But yeah, looking at this, some of these could be longer, some could be shorter, but a safe estimate is about a year, so 12 months from start to finish. So when we started on this whole Tethered journey, we really looked at it from the consumer experience perspective. We wanted to say, well, or when we set out, we were like, okay, the consumer is the one that's going to dictate the success of this initiative. So we really need to make sure that we get it right. So starting from the left-hand side, with First Sight, we said, okay, how does it look on the store shelf? How does it look like on the package? We want to make sure that there's no, features that are taking a negative type appearance or impact on the design itself. First opening, how does it feel in the hands when you're cracking that open the first time or the bridge is breaking? Is it intuitive on how you open it and secure it? And by securing there, I'm going to get into the details on the securing here, but is there feedback that's telling you, yeah, it's locked in place? Or are you left wondering, am I supposed to clip it this way now or change it? How does this work? Drinking and pouring, you want to make sure that the closure is locked in place and that it's not flapping around, say hitting you in the face when you're drinking from the bottle, or when you're going to pour from the bottle, is it interrupting the flow or the stream as you're emptying the contents? And then going to the reclosing, is it intuitive on how you unlock and close it back on the neck finish? And then the process repeats for the reopening until end of life. And by end of life, we want to make sure that when the contents have been exhausted from the bottle itself, that the closure is still tethered onto the neck finish. Next, we looked at what are the key design criteria we need to look at for the design. So the first one I talked about were the consumer experience. So those were the 6 or 7 items that we just went through. The next is intuitive. We need to make sure that this tethering, whatever tethered solution that we introduce, is intuitive and is easy to use. Next is brand enhancement. You want to make sure that whatever geometry and features you're incorporating, they do not detract from the brand appearance that the brand has worked so hard to create. Next is weight. So this is a sustainability initiative. You want to make sure when you're incorporating a tethered functionality that the weight is equal to or even better in some cases than the non-tethered equivalent that it is replacing. And then from the performance standpoint, carbonation retention levels, secure seal tests, all of these different performance criteria that you are probably familiar with when you go through to validate a closure, we wanted to make sure that there was absolutely no compromise in the design. And then from the capping and tooling perspectives, any kind of conversion, we want to minimize any kind of hardware or effort that's required to integrate a tethering solution. So some of the key items here on why work with a holistic experience partner. One is simply risk avoidance. So we've, as I said, launched or are working on projects, or sorry, have shipped or have launched projects in over 20 countries already. We have gone through a lot of those assessments on risk and how to avoid it. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we've tweaked a lot of our designs to optimize as we've gone through over the past 3 years to really provide a optimized solution, and one that minimizes any kind of impacts to integrating on the filling line and in your molding operation. Speed to market. So by having a portfolio of closures, and by that I mean standard off-the-shelf closures available for your capping trials, that helps you get to market faster. Design experience. So we have a team of experienced designers approaching over 100 years of combined closure design experience based out of our Luxembourg facility. So there's a lot of design know-how and ingenuity that is in our team, but whoever you choose to work with in terms of a design partner, you want to make sure that there is a lot of history there. Portfolio of proven designs, again, depending upon the neck finish that you're working with, you want to see if the provider of tethered solutions has a portfolio. Otherwise, that's going to delay your launch into market if they don't have a portfolio to choose from. So again, that speed to market is so critical. Single source responsibility. I think we've all been there, and not only in molding operations, but in life, when you try to act as the general contractor on bringing things together, if things go wrong, which in my case they usually do, there's always the finger pointing. I'm talking here in my personal life, whether it's getting something fixed at my house or whatever. It's, oh no, it's the plumber's fault. Well, no, it's the framer's fault. I think we've all been there, and the benefits of working with a single source supplier like a company like Husky really helps to minimize risk, and they accept full ownership. And then global support. Regardless of where your molding operations are, you want to make sure that you could be a multinational corporation or brand. You want to make sure that wherever your operations are, that there is a partner, or that partner has the ability to support you in a very timely manner. So let's move on to the latest design approaches. So these are, what I'm showing here on the screen, are a series of design concepts when we first started on this tethered journey. This here was for our 29-25, but you can see here we said, okay, well, maybe we just incorporate a single leash, maybe here a double leash, the inverse of what was on this one. 2 leashes opposing. Then we looked at hinges. How do we incorporate hinges? So we basically evolved our design thinking, and what are the, based on all of those design criteria inputs, the consumer experience inputs, this is really what we were evaluating, and many more designs that are not shown here. But what we came up with is what's shown here on slide 16. And it's basically a copy paste for most of the neck finishes that we have available. Basically three features. You have these arms, 2 opposing arms that are connected to the shell and part of the tamper evident band. They act in tension. So when you open it, the closure, those arms are acting in tension. The hook, which is this little protrusion, is actually preloaded then against this flap, on which this vertical flap is part of the tamper evident band. So that's acting in compression. So you simply unscrew and flip over, and it clicks into place with that, the tension, the compression, and the interference fit between the hook and the flap, you actually start to get a tactile response. There's a click that you can hear and also feel from a tactile perspective. So with this approach, why is it important? One, being able to lock that shell in place at 180 degrees, you avoid interference. So when you're going to drink from it, the closure isn't hitting you in the cheek or hitting you in the face. It's locked in place, it's secure. So when you drink or pour from it, that closure is not interfering. I mentioned the intuitive aspect. Simply unscrew and flip it over. I have some videos that we'll go through. And you get that tactile response. So you feel that and you also hear it with that audible click. And then finally, with this approach, we really feel that this is something that can help differentiate your brand on the store shelf. So here's an example here. You can see our friend Dimitri here opening it up. It locks into place, goes to pour, and simply screws it back on. So very simple on how it operates. This here is an example on our GME 3040, which is a SETI neck finish. This is the new 2622 CSD. This is a slight variation. You'll notice it's at 160 degrees. However, it's still locking in place. With this design, slightly different. There is no protrusion on the shell, that 1 millimeter, 1 to 2 millimeter protrusion. This here, the flange remains essentially in the shadow of the shell itself, but you have those arms that act in tension, and then the flange actually makes a interference fit with the neck finish itself and helps to lock it in place. And you saw when Dimitri poured here how it was locking in place. Another example here with Erica on opening that same closure, locking in place, taking a drink. You can see it's out of her way. It's not hitting her in the face, and simply can screw it back on quite easily. So again, through our learnings, what we've also uncovered is the geometry of these features plays a critical role, not only in how it locks in place, but we can play with the amount of preload, the amount of tension, so the interference fit, how much preload we want to apply. That all impacts that tactile response. So if there's other features on there, if we extend that hook out a little bit more, it gives a louder click. It's a stronger tactile response. So we can actually play with that depending upon the voice of customer feedback that you would receive as well. If they say, well, I wasn't sure if it was clicking or not, we can add a little more preload, and that may help then to meet that consumer aspect of what your specific findings are telling. Then we took the intuitiveness to another level, because we said, okay, how do we make this as simple as possible so the consumer knows when it's locked in place and on reclosing. And what we found here was with flat water closures that are using break then leak. So with break then leak, I mean that the bridges are all breaking before the plug seal disengages from the neck finish itself. We found that with the longer plug seal, it can be requires a little more manipulation in order to close it. So I have a little animation here that talks about what I mean. So we're going to look here. First is our 180 patented design that locks with the shell locking in place. You can see here it locks. Now we did a section view. I'm just going to stop it right here. You can see with the neck finish, the plug seal is actually making contact with the neck finish here itself. So we said, okay, how can we make that more intuitive? It's not a big deal, but we said we want to make this as intuitive as possible. So it's an optional feature, but the consumer has to manipulate it a bit before they can actually secure it onto the bottle or align it and then secured on. So I'm just going to restart. So you see you got to kind of lift it up a bit here and then align it and then screw it on. No big deal. You're probably very intuitive on how it works. But here's an example here showing the section view with the closing cam. You see how it makes contact, and then you simply continue to push and it aligns perfectly with the neck finish. So again, depending upon your brand positioning, this may be something or a feature that you'd like to incorporate. Now, this does add a bit of weight to the design. It's, in the case of this 2925, it adds 0.05 grams, 0.05 grams. So negligible amount for a more improved consumer experience in terms of reclosing. But again, maybe you decide as a brand that that isn't something that is a big concern to you, and you don't need to incorporate something like that as an example. But these are the types of details that we went to find little features that can help improve the intuitiveness of the tethered design. Just a quick introduction on tamper band formation. There's basically two primary approaches. So this here we're looking at is a typical cross section. Here it's a 2925 flat water. So I divided the closure basically into three key elements. So you have your shell, which is this area here. It's the part that has the knurls in the cover. Then we have the bridges. So the purpose of the bridges are to stretch as the closure is unscrewed for the first time. Eventually they stretch to the point where they fracture. Once they fracture, then you know that the product has been tampered with or opened. So if you see a bottle on the store shelf that has fractured bridges and you haven't purchased it yet, don't purchase it because it's likely been tampered with. And then finally, the tamper evident band speaks for itself, but this is the ring that essentially left on the bottle when you go to open it for the first time. So in subsequent times, it remains on the bottle. So there are basically two approaches to tamper band formation. There's the molded bridge and the slit bridge. I'm just going to quick show you the molded bridge approach. So this is a section view of a Husky closure mold. So this here is the split line. You have the hot half, so your hot runner nozzle. The plastic is going to be injected in here. The mold here will split away and the closure will be ejected off. And then you'll see as we close back up, the slides, which basically form that tamper evident band in those gaps in the tamper evident band, are all formed by these features here at the slides. So I'm going to start the animation. So it'll slow down. So here you see injects, mold backs out, the stripper sleeve moves forward, pushes the closure off, retracts, closes back up, closing cams interact with the slides, and the process repeats itself. The beauty with this approach is that once the closure is ejected from the mold, you're done. You're ready for vision inspection and then the capping line. There is no more operations that are required post-mold. With the slit approach, slightly different. We can mold slit fold closure designs as well. It's just you don't have these slides that actually form the tamper evident band. So you can imagine that the closure just comes out as a solid piece. There's no voids here in between the bridges. So what happens is once the closure is ejected, it runs along this hot heated knife, and these serrations here actually score the plastic and creating those bridges and the gaps in between the bridges. So two approaches, both very valid, proven technologies. The one benefit that we find with the molded bridge approach is that the closure is ready to go once it's ejected from the mold. One of the other benefits that we started to see, though, as we started down this tethered journey, is that you can incorporate much more complex geometry in a molded in bridge approach. So it increases the flexibility on the type of tethering system you want to incorporate. So as you can see here, all of these features are created with those slides. And once the closure is ejected, it's ready for the capping line. One additional benefit, I'm just going to pause this animation for a sec. So again, this is a mold. I've removed a lot of the geometry here, the different components, just to show you the slides and the inner and outer core. So we're going to inject plastic here. So this, you can see here, the slides have already closed. We're going to inject plastic. It's going to fill the closure. The slides open. The stripper sleeve, the imaginary stripper sleeve, bumps the closure off. And then you can see here, what's highlighted in red is all of the elements that were created in the slides themselves, including the entire tethering system. So now, what would happen if we were to mirror the non-tethered side with on the other side? And let's inject. Open up the slides, we eject the closure off, and you can see now by just changing one half of the pair of slides within a mold, you can flip between a tethered and a non-tethered design. So there's no need for two molds. You just simply need to convert with one component, which is the slides, and it's half the slides in a given mold. That is all you need to be able to mold tethered solutions and non-tethered solutions. Say you are a brand owner that serves the EU, but you're also serving Africa, as an example. This would be an attractive proposition simply because your capital investment is significantly lower. Next, I want to highlight a key mantra that we here at Husky follow, and it's eliminating waste. And this is an unrelenting approach that we follow using our sophisticated modeling tools or simulation tools. And when I say eliminating waste, what we do when we go to lightweight or optimize the weight of a given closure design, we take it and break it down into all of its key features. So as I've highlighted there, you have your outer seal, plug seal, threads, tamper evident band, cams, sidewall, top panel. So we look at all of those features and we say, okay, is there excess weight in that feature that we can take out and not sacrifice performance or usability? Because those are non-negotiable. Can we remove weight from those specific features and still have it perform as it is today without compromising that performance or that consumer experience? So by using our simulation tools, our flow and mechanical FEAs, we're able to speed up and identify those opportunities for weight removal in a very expedient manner. And then from there, once we're satisfied with the results that we're seeing there, we can then move towards the manufacturing and test phase without doing any kind of trial and error, which is typical in the industry. So we use the sophisticated modeling tools to identify what the limits are of those features without sacrificing performance and usability. The key advantage is speed to market, and you're getting it right the first time. So why did I talk about that? I wanted to highlight how we've actually put that in play as it applies to tethering. So if we look at here on the left-hand side, so these are 1881 CSD closures. So typical in your market, for sure, it's a global design. So if you tilt your head a bit, you'll see it's a section view. We see the plug seal, the outer seal, threads, tamper evident band, bridges. And we looked at this design for our 1881 and said, okay, we want to create a tethering system on this design. Where can we remove weight? So we did that whole process that I just explained on the previous slide. This is the outcome here on the right based on this scientific approach. And we were able to save 0.2 grams out of the closure weight. So a significant amount just by doing those simulations and identifying how do we take weight out of the design. So our 1881 was at non-tethered was at 2.2 grams. With the new design, using that methodology, we were able to shave 0.2 grams and out of the design itself to arrive at a final weight of 2.0 grams. Next, we'll talk about how Husky can help. So we talked about the shell locking, the 180 degrees, the importance of the user experience, making sure it's intuitive. Our closure designs for tethering and non-tethered, we feel really help to enhance your brand. I just went through weight neutrality, the importance of maintaining a weight neutral position. Again, it's a sustainability initiative. You don't want to have to add weight to achieve tethering. All of our designs are fully compliant with the SUP legislation. That is 15 openings and closings, so that the hinge is guaranteed to last at least 15 openings and closings and withstand a pull force of 25 newtons. There is no compromise on the performance versus the non-tethered variant. Our molded in bridge approach is ready for the capping lines. So second, it's ejected from the mold. There's no post molding operation. And as I showed in one of the earliest slides, there is widespread interest beyond Europe for tethering. Here's an example of some flexibility also using our tethering system for 1881. So let's say, and this will really appeal to converters or those operators whose business it is to supply other brands closures. So we start with the base. So let's pretend that you're supplying a global brand that uses blue as its color for identity. We would use this as the base design. And then let's say you wanted to start to supply a global brand that uses green as their identity, that has specific requirements around the top panel thickness, maybe a slight change in the neural pattern. All we would need here is a inner core and outer core to be able to achieve that improved or adjust that top panel thickness. So again, you're not introducing a new mold, you're simply replacing just a few components to achieve that satisfaction of supplying the brand in blue and the brand in green. And then let's say you want to supply the brand in red. There, from the base, you would just simply need a core and a pair of slides. So again, not an entire mold, it's just a few components of the mold to be able to supply multiple brands. And then finally, the brand in red that says, or that has a alternating neural pattern as shown here, a flex grip, that's achievable as well by simply changing slides, outer core, and cavities. So again, trying to keep if you recall in the design considerations, we're trying to keep the investment low. How do we do that? We can do that by incorporating a smart design that just requires a few component swaps to be able to achieve specific brand requirements. I spoke at the beginning about our portfolio approach. Here's our current portfolio as it stands today for tethering. Along the top, we have a bunch of different designs for water on 2621 snap cap, 2925 snap, and then 2 designs on 2925. On the CSD side, we have 2622 for both the GME 3037 and 3040 necks. Whether you want 180 or 160 is sufficient. We have that flexibility. And then a number of 1881 designs as well, along with a 38 millimeter tethering design for juice, sport drinks, and teas. Again, this is a dynamic portfolio. When I talk to you in 2 months' time from now, you'll see there are more closure designs added. When I talk to you by the end of the year, you'll see that there are many more designs that are underway. There's a number of designs that are being launched next month. So again, feel free to reach out. We can talk and discuss your needs and see if there's something else that would, a different finish or a specific requirement that you may have for your brand. Again, these are all industry-leading weights. So we use that whole approach that I talked about, eliminating of waste through the feature to really optimize the weight to ensure that these are the lightest designs available in the market. They're all mated to industry standard neck finishes through the SETI organization, and there is no license fee associated with any of our designs. Once you purchase a mold, you are free to sell that closure wherever you wish. This design here, I touched briefly on this earlier, but under adjacent market applicability for pouches, this is an example here where we provide that tethering, the base tethering functionality, or the elements that we've done on all of our designs, and apply them into an adjacent market, in this case, the pouch and carton market. So for more information, I know that that's a bit of a long URL to copy down. Just feel free to reach out to me. You can email me or do a search on husky.co. You're able to get the latest information on our tethering, or feel free to shoot me an email. I'll respond right away, and we can discuss your tethering needs, or I can put you in contact with someone that may be in your local market. So with that, I want to thank you very much for your time, and I pass it back over to Ben.
Thank you, Michael, for the insights and the wonderful presentation. And we all could learn quite a bit about all the contemporary latest technologies that Husky has to offer, what are the closures and all the wide portfolio of options that you just explained. That's so fascinating. Now we have received a lot of questions, Michael, and I think it's time for us to just quickly run through some of the questions, although we don't have much time to answer or rather take all the questions, but I'm going to choose quite a few important questions which has come up now. So there's a question.
Ben, I apologize. I just looked at the time here. It's 10:02. So again, I was a little chatty. I apologize for that. But again, if we don't get to all these questions, just I'll leave my email up there. Just feel free to shoot me an email if we don't get to your question, and we'll follow up right away.
Sure. We'll try and take as quickly a few important questions, if you like. There's a question which has come up from Egypt. What type of neck finishes work with your offering from Husky in terms of your solutions? It's a very generic question from what I see, but I'd like to take that, Michael.
Yeah, what I'll quick do is we'll just go back. So on the water side, we have 2 snap options, 26, 21, 29, 25 snaps, and then thread on or screw on 29, 25. Both the standard height and the XT means extra tall. So it gives the same grip zone as a 30, 25. Again, what I mentioned, if you talk to me in a month, we'll have the 30, 25 available. And we're also working on the 25, 22. So I don't know if anyone is going to be attending Drink Tech. in Munich in September, but we will have our full portfolio there. And yeah, so on the water side, so 29, 25, 30, 25 coming, 25, 22, the really small, this design here, be available. On the water side, you see the 26, 22 and the 1881. Those are the dominant finishes for carbonated soft drinks. There'll be some red closures in there too in the next month or so. And then on 38 millimeter, that is the only design that we have right now for juice, sport drinks, and teas. It's a 3-start aseptic, but we will be introducing a 32 millimeter probably in early 2023. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but that's our portfolio as it exists now in the next 2 months.
Sure. All right. Thank you. There's another very interesting question which has come up. Does the same tethered cap design be implemented on different neck sizes, or is it limited to some neck sizes only? This is from Suraj from Dubai, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we use, there's the 2 basic designs there that I showed, the 160 and then the 180. Those are the 2 dominant approaches that we've been using. Obviously, like on a 25-22, you need to, for those arms, they need to come a little bit further around the circumference of the closure itself. But for the most part, the 2 designs that I showed there with the video of the gentleman opening it and the previous slide, those are the 2 dominant tethering approaches that we use for all of our tethering designs, whether it's 38 millimeter, flat water, or carbonated soft drink.
Right. So thank you. We have a very important question. It's pretty interesting. This is from Karnain Shahidi, who's the senior packaging manager for Almarai. He asks this question: what are the major amendments required by the brand owner on packaging lines to implement this in terms of capping?
That's a good question. Yep. So we've implemented a number of designs in Southeast Asia already, in Europe. One of our earliest designs was commissioned early 2021. So it has, last count, I think it was 20 million cycles, something like that. So it has been running for quite a while. But to answer your question, as far as line changes that are required, new capping chucks, right? That is the only investment in terms of new hardware. The rest is all adjustments with the rails, maybe the pickup plate. And obviously, if you are looking to combine this, which is a smart move, with a lightweighting initiative, and say by that I mean going to a different neck finish, then there will be some other downstream requirements required. However, on a case-by-case basis. However, if you are running, say, 1881 now, and you want to run an 1881 tethered, it's new capping chucks and adjustments. That's it. We have a capping team, capping specialist team. Guys based in Singapore, gentlemen are based in Luxembourg, and they can fly out and as part of your commissioning, make all of the necessary adjustments to ensure a successful trial at the piloting stage and also obviously at the production stage.
Right. Thank you.
So again, the only requirement, new capping chucks, the rest is all adjustments unless you're going with a new neck finish.
Right. Thanks. There's a question from Nand Kishore from NFPC Dubai. How do you remove a cap in the recycling process? If it's the tethered cap,
yeah,
is it easy to remove it?
Yeah, there's a lot of technologies out there that when it gets to the recycler or the reclaimer, it uses a float sink type approach. And by that, I mean the bottle will be thrown into a granulator, grind it all up with, you know, the PT, the HDPE, and label everything. And then that's routed into a water channel, if you will. And the density of the two materials, the PET and the HDPE, are different. So the PET is more dense, so it sinks. It'll sink in the channel. The HDPE will float, and it'll float along and then divert. So that's how the separation occurs. There's nobody there that has to remove them one by one. The technology exists to take care of it automatically. And I can, if you want to email me, I can put you in touch with equipment providers of that.
Right. Thank you. There's a very interesting question again from Almarai. Can the existing mold be refurbished to have these features, or an entirely new set of mold are required? I think you touched this topic, but you can probably answer it again.
Yeah, it's all dependent upon the specific application, but there is conversions that are available. Obviously, if it's not a Husky mold, then, you know, there's most likely you would need to purchase a new mold versus us trying to work with, you know, a competitive type mold frame and so on. It's just more cost effective to go with a new mold. Again, everything else would be just case by case basis to see what existing mold you have, and whether you're staying with the existing neck finish or you're looking to lightweight and move to a new dispensing system.
Michael, I think we have quite a few questions coming in, but since we have limited time, I'm going to take just one more important question, and then we are going to pass on all these questions back to you so that you can answer them, you know, directly. Okay. And we'll also feature we're going to do later. But before that, this is the question, the last question for the day. How are you able to maintain weight neutrality yet incorporate hinge?
Okay, that was covered on one of the slides earlier, where we use our simulation tools. And yeah, what we do is we say, okay, where can we take weight out of the design itself, and on all of the features, and then based on that, we eliminate weight out of the closure without sacrificing the usability or the performance of that specific feature. And you do that for all of the features on the closure itself. You by default can increase your weight savings.
Right. Michael, I need to take this question because this is a little different from what we have been speaking. Anything done by Husky on Tetra Pak or aseptic packaging caps for 1 liter or 2 liter family packs?
Yes, so as far as carton closures go, I don't have a design that's available yet. We are working on it, so it's part of that dynamic portfolio. That answers one part. The other part, on the larger family packs, the aseptic, we have a 38 millimeter design that's currently available for larger format applications. And again, we'll have the 32 millimeter available in, I think it's Q1 2023. So that's the other major format for aseptic.
Perfect. Thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to have you all on board for this rigid packaging webinar on tethered closures, and I hope it was quite insightful and useful for you. as I recap this webinar, it's very interesting, Michael, to learn from you and understand how the North American and European markets have matured with this particular technology, and it's picking up quite fast. And being in the Middle East and Africa, although major brands, bigger brands are looking into this as one of the important transitions that they need to do that in the very near future. I see that the legislation and compliance also plays a part in this, and we are working towards this region to see how this really works quicker. And I'm sure that in the next few months we can see big brands implementing these technologies. Although there are some of them who have applied this, but by and large, it's still happening, and there's a huge potential for this particular technology to take up in this part of the world. And with that, I'd like to just summarize by saying we'll be running a special featured article on this particular webinar in the upcoming edition of Packaging India magazine, also on a website. And this video will also be available to all of you viewers, and some of you who couldn't make it for today's webinar. We'll be sending it to you. It will automatically reach you. So till we meet again, and till you get this report, take care. And if you have questions, you can address it to us, and we can pass it on to Husky for them to answer as well. Once again, thank you very much, Michael, and thank you very much, all of you, and looking forward to seeing you all soon once again.
Yeah, thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks. Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.